So now I am going to open up my torn piece of paper, PSD. Now I need to go to File, Open, so it actually opens in the right application. The computers at the Academy are not quite set up correctly. So if you double click a Photoshop file, it will try and open in Illustrator. So you really need to go to File, Open, make sure that you are opening your PSD within Photoshop. And the same thing here, we are in tabbed mode, so if I just click, drag it down, it will go into floating window mode. And same as before, that will then enable you to use the move tool and select one window and drag it into another one. Just click yes if you get this error message and close down the original piece of paper PSD. So here we have our torn piece of paper, and if I look in the layers here, you'll see that the transparent pixels are locked. So to go over that again, if I change the color of this, let's go for this green, because this is locked, if I get my paintbrush and I drag my paintbrush across, you'll see it only affects the pixels that have color in it. If I do Control Z to go back, and if I turn this off and do exactly the same thing, then it paints the transparent pixels. So transparent pixels turned locked. It will only affect the pixels that have got color on it. Okay, that's the first thing. And now we're going to sort of replicate the Andy Warhol torn paper effect that he used with Mick Jagger, the portraits of Mick Jagger. And I'm going to also introduce you to the layer blends. So where it says normal here, you can click on darken, and there's a whole host of different color effects that happen when you go through the layer blends. Some of them are successful, some are not successful, and it's quite a creative element of Photoshop. So you can see that you can do lots of sort of changes very quickly and very easily as you whiz through these color blends. So that really makes Photoshop into quite a creative tool. That's quite a nice one. And just click and drag, and you can duplicate these, and they can have various different hues, saturations. All of these you can experiment and try different types of effects, and also you can change the color of this as well. So because it has got the lock on, I can just do Alt backspace, and if I put it to normal, you will see that it has changed color. So yeah, red. So Alt backspace, and again experiment with all of these layer blends. Okay. I also want to introduce you to layers, new adjustment layers, and new fill layers. So if I go to a gradients, this box comes up, you click OK, and you can choose a gradient. If I click onto this little cog, I can add more layers by, gradients by clicking append. If I drag this out, okay, so it's this little icon here. Click onto that, append, and it adds more gradients. So noise, I think that's quite a nice one. You will see some more gradients. Click OK. So let's double click that. I think if I click into here and click into there, I can actually add some more gradients here. Okay, so if I want to change the color of this, I can click here, change the color here. I can, so I can make my own gradients. To add a gradient color, you just click there, click onto here, add a color. No, hold on, that's the wrong color to use. Click onto here, let's click red, and you can keep on and make your gradient as complicated as you want. If you want to take gradients away, you just click and you just drag away. Click and just drag away. Okay, this is the center point of the gradient, and you can change that as well. So once you've decided on your gradients, you might notice that I can't see Ryan, and this is an opportunity again to experiment with the layer blends. And you can whiz through here and some quite interesting things happen. So the top layer, the layer blend, is influencing the colors underneath. And as I said, you can actually be quite experimental. Some work, some are terrible. But you can whiz through these and just see if any are working for your image. Difference is also always a horrible one. Okay. Now, the great thing about using the new layer fill, and this is something that the developers of Photoshop have worked quite hard to do. It's called non-destructive, so you can turn this on, off rather, or on, and if you double click this, you can also change the gradient to whatever gradient you want. So you double click that, choose a gradient. So it does actually give you a lot of creativity and flexibility. The next thing I want to show you is a new adjustment layer, and this is something that we will work with in more detail later on. But the same sort of thing, you click OK, it makes a new adjustment layer, and you can change the hue, you can change the saturation. So if I drag it to the left, it goes black and white. If I drag it to the right, it really saturates the color. Lightness, that is quite destructive because it just puts a black sort of, you lose detail, or it either goes black or white. So it's not, I wouldn't really ever use that. Colorize sets it all to one color. You can whiz through all the different hues, and the same thing. If you close this down, you can turn it on and off. If you double click here, you can change the hue. You can turn off the colorize and use the whole spectrum of color. So again, very, very flexible and creative to use these adjustment layers. They're called adjustment layers. Okay, so that is about it, and you can drag and add more of these, as many as you want. You can have lots of these all floating around and all interacting differently with your artwork.